This video is brought to you by BetUS Sportsbook and Casino.
What's going on, Washington Commanders Nation? Today is Monday, August 26th, and we are one day away from final 53-man roster cuts. A sad day for a lot of players league-wide. Not saying the dream of playing in the NFL is dead, but the light goes out, at least temporarily, as their dreams get cut short when teams let them know you did not make the original 53-man roster. It can be due to performance. It can be due to the numbers game. There are a lot of reasons why guys don't make teams, and we got to crunch the roster down from about 99 to 53, a process that used to have a whole bunch of different days for cuts, a bunch of different cut deadline days. Now they just get straight to it in one big chop. So Washington needs to get from about 99 players down to 53, and I've never done a 53-man roster projection on the channel before. This will be a first. Not exactly sure how I'm going to present it to you visually, but we're about to put together my 53-man roster. The best way for me to do it, I felt like to keep it easiest, 25 offensive players, 25 defensive players, 3 specialists. So starting off, we can start with the easiest thing to do, the 3 specialists on the team. We finally have a kicker on the roster. Cade York was 2 of 2 in his preseason debut with the Commanders yesterday, and he made his extra points. It's not like we have a large sample size to go off of, but the guy was drafted in the mid-rounds a couple years ago and has a big leg. Let's just hope the accuracy can line up with the leg power. I think someone told me in my chat yesterday that man has a 97 kick power on Madden. So we'll see how that turns out. Cade York is your kicker. We know who the punter is. All reliable, one of the better players on the roster, someone we've depended on for quite some time now, and a position I hope we never have to speak about again ever in Washington. Tyler Ott at long snapper. 3 specialists. We're down to 50 players to crunch down. I'm going to start on the defensive side of the ball. We're keeping 25 players. I got 6 defensive ends, 5 defensive tackles, 5 corners, 4 linebackers, and safety. Let's start at the safety position because I think this is where the most notable player doesn't make the cut. At safety, I got your starters as Jeremy Chin and Jartavius Quan Martin. Backing those players up, I got Jeremy Reeves, Percy Butler, and Tyler Owens, the undrafted standout out of Texas Tech, the freak of nature. So safeties, Jeremy Chin, Quan Martin, Jeremy Reeves, Percy Butler, Tyler Owens, which leaves Derek Forrest, Defoe on the outside looking in. I'm not sure he makes this team. I just saw something not too long ago where he posted a Bible verse on X, but some guys are just high in their faith. But this time of year, when you start seeing Bible verses getting pulled out on social media, could mean he didn't make the team. He didn't have a great offseason. Remember, this is a new operation we have here. We have a new coaching staff. Derek Forrest may not be a fit for them. He's been battling to get on the field all summer, and he did not have a finale that was worthy yesterday versus the Patriots of saying that guy has to make the team. So that's my final room at safety. Tyler Owens rounds out the safety room of Percy Butler, Jeremy Reeves, Jeremy Chin, and Quan Martin. Moving on to linebacker, one of the easiest positions to do on the team. You know who the 2 are, Bobby Wagner and Frankie Louvu. Anthony Pittman is your 3rd linebacker, and Jordan McGee is your 4th. If for some reason Jordan McGee is put on the IR to start the year because of the repair of his slightly torn meniscus, replace Jordan McGee with rookie Dominic Hampton out of Washington. Either way, 4 linebackers. We're not keeping more than 4. I don't see the reason to. Cornerback, another position I feel is very easy. I just did this on the Ref the District podcast. I hopped over there and I predicted a cornerback room of Benjamin St-Juste and Michael Davis starting on the outside, with Mikey Sanders still in the nickel. Emmanuel Forbes and Tariq Castro Fields round out that cornerback room. I'm keeping 5 on the original 53. And this 53-man roster projection I'm doing This is not going to account for guys we could bring in from another team. This is off what we currently have in-house in Ashburn right now. This is what I think we're going to keep. So I kept five at safety, four at backer, five at cornerback. Once again, that was St. Juice, Davis, and Sainer are still starting. Forbes and Castro Fields being the rotational cornerbacks. But this is a very fluid situation we have at cornerback. I can easily see us scouring the roster cuts around league wide and taking advantage of that number 2 in the waiver wire order when cuts come out tomorrow. But this is just my original list. And to round out the defense, we got our defensive line. I got us keeping 11 on the defensive line, 5 defensive tackles. Yes, you read that correctly. 5 defensive tackles. I got Allen and Payne starting, obviously. Jerzon Newton, fluid situation with him because he could start off on the IR as well, but I got him on the final roster to start. Of course, that's our second round pick, one of the more talented guys we have in the room. And Ridgeway. Those are your top 4. But I got us keeping 5. I got us wanting to activate Newton and not putting him on the IR. So I got Newton on it regardless. I got Fedarian Mathis on the final roster. 5 defensive tackles. One of my shockers here on the roster so far. I got Allen Payne, Newton, Ridgeway, and Mathis. Fedarian Mathis, a guy we've seen not much from since his tenure here, since being drafted in the second round a couple years ago by Ron Rivera. Fedarian had a good preseason. He was active. He was all over the field. He was batting passes down. He's getting pressure and clogging up that middle and being the space eater Ron and company imagined him to be when they drafted him. 5 in the defensive tackle room. And to close out the defensive side of my 53-man roster projection, 6 edge rushers. Starting, I got Dorrance Armstrong and Cleveland Farrell starting on opposite edges. As rotational pass rush specialists, I got Dante Fowler Jr. and KJ Henry. Boy, has KJ Henry become someone to keep an eye on. He flashes every time he's on the football field. He got a little get back versus the New England Patriots last night when he sacked Jacoby Brissett. You know, they took his first career sack away from him when we were up in Foxborough last year. He got the same type of sack back, and he might have injured Jacoby Brissett on the play. So Armstrong, Farrell, Dante Fowler Jr., KJ Henry, Jamin Davis has made the roster as an edge on my roster projection, and Jean-Baptiste and Jamin Davis round out the room. Jamin, you've shown enough. You have enough motor and enough left in your tank to try out a new position and see how you do on Sundays as now a defensive end for the Washington Commanders defense. So just to repeat it again, edge rushers, Armstrong, Farrell, Fowler, Henry, Jean-Baptiste, and Jamin Davis. Defensive tackles, Allen, Payne, Newton, Ridgeway, and Mathis. Corners, St. Juice, Michael Davis, San Rastil, Forbes, and Castro Fields. Linebacker, Wagner, Luvu, Pittman, McGee. And if McGee is not there, replace him with Dominique Hampton. Safety, Jeremy Chin, Quan Martin, Reeves, Butler, and Owens. And your 3 specialists were Tress Way, Cade York, and Tyler Ott. Moving to what everybody wants to talk about, the offensive side of the ball for my final 25. Like I told you earlier in the video, we're doing 25 offensive players, 25 defensive players, 3 special teamers. We're only keeping 2 quarterbacks, Jaden Daniels and Marcus Mariota. I don't think a long conversation needs to be had here. I know fans are going to go out and say, oh, Jeff Driscoll needs to make the team. No, the fuck he doesn't. And Sam Hartman's not making the team either. We can stash an additional 3rd quarterback on the practice squad that we could dress on game days without counting against a roster spot. So I imagine that's going to be Sam Hartman if they keep one. Running back, I'm keeping 3, not keeping 4. B-Rob, Austin Eckler, Michael Wiley. Michael Wiley might have done more for his case than anybody here not named Tyler Owens. He is the offensive side of the ball, Tyler Owens. Michael Wiley is your running back 3. Could you keep could you keep Jeremy McNichols in a Peyton Barber type short yardage situation running back? Sure. I don't see the reason to keep 4 running backs. I'm keeping 3. Because of the heavy workload we're giving to Brian Robinson and Austin Eckler. And Michael Wiley seems plenty explosive enough to fill in and spell them whenever they need a break. Tight end, not keeping 4 either. We're going 3. See, I'm keeping extra at positions that we need more. Tight end, we're keeping 3 of them. Zach Ertz, Ben Sinnott, John Bates. I'm afraid you've been voted off the island, Cole Turner. Yankov's not making the team, but Cole Turner, a guy we had high hopes for when Ron drafted him in the mid rounds a couple years ago, he will not be making this final roster. Will he have a chance to make the practice squad? Sure. I'm sure no one's going to be beating down our door for the services of Cole Turner, but he just has not done enough, shown any type of consistency, or flashed enough to make this final roster. This is where it gets tricky at the wide receiver position and on the O-line. Let's start at wide receiver. I repeat again, this final 53-man projection is not what I think we can pick up from other teams. It's not for us claiming someone off waivers. It's the final 53 from our building. So I got Washington keeping 7 receivers. I repeat, 7 wide receivers. Not 5, not 6. I know I've been saying all offseason we're going to keep 5. I don't see the reason for 6. They're going to keep 7 because we're running an offense that routinely uses 4 and 5 receiver sets. So you got to have a stable of wide receiver. Got to have a stable of horses ready to go. The obvious core 4: Terry, Diami, Luke McCaffrey, Olamide Zaccheaus. Easy. Crowder seems like a lock at returner, and to spell one of the slot receivers here for the group. Here's where it gets tricky after that 5. The only 2 players in the room I seen that have flashed enough and that make sense on this roster. Number 1, Kazmir Allen. While he necessarily hasn't done enough on tape, he's clearly done enough in practice that there's a plan for this guy. It feels like they have a plan offensively for this guy. I don't think they just throw around the words possibly Deebo Samuel type gadget player for a guy they don't have plans to use in the regular season. I think Kazmir Allen sneaks in the roster and can count as an extra running back or an extra wide receiver. On my list, we're counting him as a wide receiver. Kazmir Allen locks in the 6th wide receiver spot on my roster projection. And to close out the room, someone who I've said all summer is not going to make the final roster, I think Martavis Bryant may make the roster initially. Like, he may not suit up on game days off rip, but he has a body type, a size profile that Washington is needed in the wide receiver room. They need a big body, go up and get it possession receiver. Are we getting the Martavis Bryant of 10 years ago that was lighting shit up in Pittsburgh? Absolutely not. But they love the guy. They love the story. They love the resilience. And weed is no longer a banned substance in the NFL. They ain't checking for it anymore. So maybe they can squeeze out the little bit of juice that's left in Martavis Bryant, and he initially squeaks in to crack the 7th wide receiver spot in the Commanders' room. So to summarize the wide receiver room: Terry McLaurin, De'Ami Brown, Luke McCaffrey, Olamide Zaccheaus, Jamison Crowder, Kazmir Allen, and Martavis Bryant. I definitely think there are some options that we can outsource that is going to be released elsewhere, or trade candidates. Like, look at John Mechie in Houston, 2nd-year guy. Teams are blowing them up about trading for a guy like John Mechie. That's a guy that can start for a lot of teams in the league. So there are options other than here, but based on what we have here, I got us keeping 7. And it's technically like keeping 6 with one who's technically a running back / wide receiver, but 7 receivers. But to round out the offensive side of the ball, I've got 10 offensive linemen on my 53-man projection. Starting, I got Brandon Coleman at left tackle, Nick Allegretti at left guard, Tyler Biadasz at center, Sam Cosmi at right guard, Andrew Wiley at right tackle. And I got 5 guys behind them. So give me 5 guys on the offensive line backing up the 5 guys we have starting. We need as many bodies on the offensive line as possible. You know, that position takes the most punishment on a regular basis. You got to have all the bodies you could possibly have. I'm not keeping 8 or 9. We're keeping 10. So Coleman, Allegretti, Biadasz, Cosmi, Wiley, and behind them, Chris Paul, Braden Daniels, another shocker. He had a really, really, really good summer, a very productive summer. Big shocker. Didn't look like he was ever going to cut it in the NFL last year. Didn't even look conditioned enough to get through a practice last year. He's shown a lot this offseason. You've made the final roster, Braden Daniels, Chris Paul. Cornelius Lucas, obviously, is our rotational swing tackle. Trent Scott and Michael Dieter. 10 offensive linemen: Coleman, Alec Reddy, Biotis, Cosme, Wiley, Chris Paul, Braden Daniels, Cornelius Lucas, Trent Scott, Michael Dieter. That is going to round out my 53-man roster. 25 on offense, 25 on defense, 3 specialists, nothing fancy. We're not talking about waiver wire ads. We're talking about what is in the building currently for the Washington Commanders. Let me know how you would grade my 53-man roster projection in the comments. What would you change? Who would you add to the roster that I cut? Who would you cut from the roster that I added? Let me know what you think about it in the comments below. And until next time, make sure if you're going to do any betting this football season, you do it with BetUS Sportsbook and Casino, home of the fastest payouts in the industry and up to a 125% match bonus for your first 3 deposits of up to $2,000. BetUS Sportsbook and Casinos, where it all begins. Until next time, hail to the Washington Commanders. Commander Rio, out.
Michael Vick here at BetUS.com. Get it all. Huge bonuses, great odds, a race book, live in-game betting, and a casino. BetUS, my online sports book and casino.